It's a work thing. My daughter protested, but my husband wouldn't listen.
You should cancel that trip.
My daughter was desperate. She is trying to persuade him to stop.
We had plans to go out, just the three of us this weekend. I even turned down an invitation from my friends for this.
It seemed like my husband felt a bit guilty after hearing our daughter's plea. But unfortunately, it looked like he wasn't going to cancel. Of course, I had rearranged my work schedule for this weekend, so I couldn't help but glare at my husband. How could a trip be so important that he couldn't cancel it even when our only daughter is begging him? Every weekend, it's either entertaining golf, working overtime on holidays, he's always going somewhere, and this weekend was supposed to be our time together. My husband looked at me as if to say, "You understand, right?" But I just couldn't understand, feeling my affection for him cooling off. I'm Emily Johnson, 38 years old. I am living with my husband, Kyle, and our daughter, Bella. We bought a condo near our workplace and had been living happily together. Kyle works for a well-known large corporation. As he's getting older, he's being entrusted with bigger projects as a mid-management level employee. I work for a client company of his corporation. I returned to work after maternity leave and am now in a decent position. Since both of us are working, we're not struggling with money, and we've enjoyed traveling and dining out as a family of 3. Our daughter is such a good kid, not just because I'm a doting parent. Kyle dotes on her too. Unlike the common saying that daughters tend to dislike their fathers at some point, our daughter loved her dad. And we were grateful for our life every day. However, not everything was perfect. My husband doesn't do a single household chore. I could somehow accept handling everything during my maternity leave. But things didn't change even after I returned to work. I was burdened with caring for our daughter, preparing meals, cleaning, and laundry. Feeling at my limit, I asked my husband to at least help out with half of the childcare or household chores. But he replied annoyingly, "I earn enough that you could quit your job if you wanted. If you don't like it, you should just quit." Bluntly, he refused. Looking back, I might have been experiencing something like postpartum depression. From that time, I began to realize that my husband's kindness was only superficial and he doesn't truly care about me. Perhaps to our friends, my husband seemed kind. Because he treated our daughter well when he was with his colleagues. But the truth behind closed doors was known only to me. During tough times, I would hire a babysitter or outsource household chores without consulting him when he wasn't around. I envied the care and attention I saw in other families with children in our neighborhood. My daily life was so hard that even a complaint as minor as my husband not washing dishes properly sounded like sarcasm. As Bella grew up healthily, and I fully returned to work. Our daughter started school, and our life routine stabilized, then my husband started going out more. On weekends, it was either drinking parties, get-togethers, entertaining golf, or barbecues with his department colleagues. He was hardly ever at home. I wished we could spend our rare days off together as a family, enjoying family time. Even if we went out, I wanted it to be as a family unit. Bella started to tell me she wanted to go out with her dad too. I always made an effort to take her shopping or to the movies, ensuring she had a good time, but she still missed having her dad around. My husband didn't seem to care about our daughter's feelings at all. Tomorrow, I'm going camping with my colleagues. I'll be staying overnight, so I won't be home tomorrow evening. He told me quietly before bed. Finally, feeling sorry for our daughter who had been putting up with so much, I pleaded, "Why don't you take us camping sometime?" "Bella has been saying she wants to go with you. I'm not good with bugs, so taking us camping is out of the question." Then, my husband's face turned sour.
"The reason I'm going with my colleagues is that it's part of the job. It's not like I'm just relaxing and having fun like you guys. Don't talk nonsense."
He yelled at me. He had suddenly become angry like this before, but it was never to this extent when we weren't even fighting. Rather than being angry, I was so shocked I couldn't speak. Hearing my husband's yelling, our daughter came out of her room with a surprised look.
"Daddy, what's wrong? Did I do something bad? Are you angry because you're busy with work?" Let's play together again on your day off,"
she said as she hugged him tightly. Feeling guilty after being confronted by our daughter, my husband mumbled an apology and went into the bedroom. Left in the living room, I was frustrated and couldn't come to terms with what had happened. Sure, he's been popular since college, known for being the life of the party, and admired by both men and women. I envied that skill, which I didn't have. Thinking about it, it seemed unreasonable to be upset about that aspect of him. Considering how he was relied upon at work just like before, it wasn't surprising. Although I felt unsettled, I thought it was wrong as a wife to deny my husband's strengths and decided not to pursue it further. After seeing our daughter's lonely face, my husband started reducing his weekend outings. She was building a good relationship with her father. However, the decrease in his outings didn't mean he started helping with household chores. We just went out as a family occasionally. As usual, most of the childcare and housework fell on my shoulders. My dream of doing simple chores like cooking dinner together or working on trendy DIY projects to make storage shelves seemed unlikely to come true. Yet, our daughter, being a teenager, seemed to enjoy going out with the three of us, always begging her father to take her places. He seemed not entirely opposed to the idea, planning a trip to the amusement park next month with her. I always watched these scenes with a smile. Today, after a long time, my daughter and I went to the shopping mall alone. Why alone? Because my husband had left the house in the morning to hang out with his colleagues after a long time. Going out just with my daughter was a lot of fun, chatting away like sisters as we visited various stores. When my husband is there, I can't fully enjoy browsing the mall because I feel bad for leaving him out. It was when my daughter said, "Let's eat something delicious," and we were walking through the food court. I saw the profile of my husband, who I had seen off in the morning. As I chased after him, calling out, I noticed a young woman beside him. Seeing me frozen in shock, my daughter seemed to realize too. "Mom, is that?" I felt like I was about to collapse. My daughter's face looked like she was about to cry. He said he was going with a colleague, so maybe that's who it is. Trying to stay calm, I spoke to my daughter.
"No way. Even I can tell. It's obvious, Dad is cheating. Actually, I've been suspecting it for a while but didn't tell you."
I was even more shocked by my daughter's words. I thought he was just hanging out with colleagues, but was it just my own obliviousness? Overwhelmed with disbelief, my daughter added, "Actually, I've sometimes snooped on Dad's phone." You didn't suspect, so I pretended not to know, but I've seen messages that seemed like he was cheating. I was astonished and looked intently at my daughter. She knew but kept up appearances for my sake. I felt an immense sense of guilt, even though it wasn't my fault. "Look, Mom. Now's our chance. We need to catch Dad in the act of cheating. We should gather evidence first. We can decide what to do afterward." Pulling my reluctant hand, we followed my husband. He was sitting at a travel agency counter with that woman. Passing by them unnoticed, we saw a page for a trip to Hawaii open on their table. They were leaning in close, giggling and planning their trip as if they were a couple about to go on a romantic vacation. We never even talked about going on a trip together, but there you are, happily planning one with your affair partner. It's heartbreaking to think that you were once happy just going to the local amusement park with us. I wanted to cry out loud, but I couldn't do that in front of our daughter. I was just numb. I don't even remember how we got home. They say you can lose your memory from a severe shock, and that was exactly what happened. The first thing that brought me back to reality was hearing our daughter's voice saying, "Dad said he suddenly has a drinking party, so he'll be home late. So we should go to bed first." Sorry. Half a month later. My husband casually mentioned, "I'll be going on a trip for a week starting tomorrow." When asked where, he said it was a company retreat. That so-called affair trip, I muttered in my heart. This is sudden. Who are you going with? I managed to ask calmly as usual. It's a company trip. Just going with the usual colleagues. He replied, still lying through your teeth. While thinking he was a big liar at heart, I was also curious to see how he would try to deceive me this time. Our daughter came in upon hearing our voices.
Dad, what are you talking about all of a sudden? We were supposed to go out together tomorrow, remember?
She probably knew it was an affair trip too. She tried desperately to stop him, more than she ever had. But her efforts were in vain. Normally, her attempts to persuade him was successful, but not this time.
It's a work commitment.
He continued to deny. You should really cancel that trip. She urged again. I was silently listening to the exchange, heart pounding.
Sorry, let's go out when I'm off work next time.
Work commitments are important too. That was the last straw for me. It wasn't just my daughter, I had hoped he would listen to this advice too. If he had, maybe I could have forgiven the affair. But now, I felt nothing, no anger, no sadness. It was just like a gaping hole in my heart. Completely oblivious to our feelings, my husband started preparing for his trip the next day. And the following morning, he left early. After a week, he returned late at night. Seemingly in high spirits. Probably a bit drunk. You know, my colleague Jonathan. He started with a fabricated story. Once he finished, he quickly said he was tired and headed straight for the bedroom. I sighed while packing up, telling myself this was the last time. The next day, still looking tired, he went to work, saying something like, I wonder if everyone will come to work in good spirits. Unaware of what awaited you. An hour after you should have arrived at work, my phone rang.
What did you do? I got to work, and they told me I'm fired.
He was furious. Surely after a harsh scolding by his boss. And also he should had cold looks from his subordinates. It was only natural, considering I had laid the groundwork while you were away on your trip.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have to go to work now, so don't bother me.
I cut off the call definitively after stating my piece. I presumed he knew I was playing dumb, but being harangued over the phone was just annoying. A few hours later, my husband stormed into my workplace, fuming.
I was told I'm fired for going on a week-long affair trip without permission. What's this all about?
Rewinding to half a month ago. Still reeling from the shock, my daughter said to me,
Mom, I'm on your side. I've even taken photos of all his affair messages, just in case they might come in handy.
Apparently, she had seen him openly reading messages from his mistress when he thought no one was watching. She had taken pictures with her phone. She knew his password and had been unlocking his phone to monitor him while he was away. All without showing any signs of suspicion, always acting happy around him. I was amazed at how much she had grown without me noticing. I had always seen her as a little child who needed coddling, but she had been observantly watching out for me instead. On the other hand, all trust in my husband was gone. I had believed he was just the life of the party at work, but I had been deceived all along. The realization was too painful, and I felt too foolish to even cry. Fueled by anger, my daughter and I discussed and started moving towards divorce. I had to be strong, not just for myself but for my daughter. I could have hired a detective to follow my husband, but that would cost money, and we already had sufficient evidence. So first, I put the GPS in a discreet place on his bag. This is to confirm whether he was going straight home from work as he claimed. When dealing with my husband's company, I took the initiative, investigating him and his workplace. It was soon discovered that he was visiting hotels after work and dining at fancy bistros. And there were no company outings or trips like he claimed. My suspicions turned into convictions, and instead of wallowing in sadness, I focused on making him pay. My daughter and I held solid evidence together, and we had decided that if he canceled the affair trip, we would let go of the evidence, but if he went, we would use it to destroy his life. That's why my daughter desperately advised him to cancel the trip, but my husband, oblivious, departed anyway. My daughter kept tabs on his phone, knowing all the hotels he would stay at in advance. I took time off work, gathered solid evidence of his affair trip in the first 3 days. I took numerous undeniable photos and went back home. On the 4th day, I went to his company with the evidence and spilled everything to his boss. The boss was shocked as he had been told by my husband that he needed a week off because my father had died, a complete lie. feeling both embarrassed and pitiful for a husband who would tell such lies. It was frustrating beyond measure. Infuriated, his boss said, "This is unacceptable behavior for a man nearly 40. It's irresponsible towards both the family and the company," and promised to fire him upon his return. Unaware of this, my husband went to work as usual. He surely faced the wrath of his boss and the sneers of his subordinates, his reputation in ruins. My actions over the past 2 weeks were validated, and I felt a sense of triumph. As I was reveling in my thoughts, the phone rang again.
"Don't you hang up on me. Because of you, I'm in deep trouble. I'm fired, you know."
He was ranting over the phone. He's completely ignoring his own wrongdoing.
"I didn't ask for you to be fired. This is your fault, isn't it? You've been cheating and fooling around. Don't blame me. And don't fake my parents' funeral. It's morbid. This isn't a child playing hooky."
I couldn't hold back anymore. Years of pent-up frustration poured out. After venting my anger, I delivered the final blow.
"Go to her. I'll leave the house if you can wait a week. We're getting a divorce."
I had finally said it. I had packed most of my belongings over that week. Okay. Calm down. There seems to be a misunderstanding. I'll wait at home. Let's talk. My seriousness got through, and it seems he realized he couldn't deceive me as usual. There's nothing to discuss, but I just wanted to clear things up. Can't be helped then. I'll be back around 7. I couldn't stand him lingering around my workplace forever, so I sent him home. As promised, I returned home after 7 with heavy steps. My already drunk husband with a flushed face was waiting. I didn't want my daughter to witness a traumatic scene, so she was staying with a friend. It seems all my husband could do while waiting for me was to drown his sorrows in alcohol. Realizing he hadn't even thought about sorting out his luggage from the trip, I felt sure he would never change.
"You really did it, destroying my life,"
he shouted as soon as he saw me. But it was his own doing. I felt like those words were spoken out loud. Suddenly, I was slapped twice in a row. For a moment, I didn't realize what had happened, but the stinging in my face made it clear. Out of fear, I grabbed a cushion and a book nearby and threw them at him.
"Stop! Calm down! Please!"
Just when I felt in danger of being hit again, a man burst through the front door. My father-in-law came in and stopped my husband.
"You've really done something terrible now. And to hit your own wife."
My mother-in-law came in hurriedly after him.
"This stupid son," she said, hitting my husband while crying.
My husband was shouting, blaming everything on me, but my father-in-law yelled back, "You're the worst. You caused all this." Then my own parents came in, asking, "Are you okay?" Seeing my face, my dad understood what had happened and lunged at my husband.
"What have you done to our precious daughter? You've hurt her both mentally and physically."
He was beside himself. "It's okay now, you don't have to endure any more," my mother said, hugging me tightly. I started crying uncontrollably. After hitting him a few times, my father-in-law pushed my husband's head down into a deep bow.
"I am terribly sorry for the awful things done to your daughter."
He was offering his deepest apologies to me and my parents.
"I'm truly sorry, Emily. Our son has hurt you and Bella. I don't know how we can possibly make amends for his actions."
My mother-in-law apologized to me while crying. "It's not your fault, it's Kyle's. I also have my share of blame for not noticing," I said, although I didn't mean it. But seeing her face, I couldn't help but say it. On the other hand, my husband was still glaring at us, not calming down even after being beaten by my father. My father-in-law continued to scold my husband and repeated his apologies. Leaving us with apologies, my husband and his parents left. My parents suggested I move back home with my daughter until things settled down, given how worried they were. Finally, everything was over, and I gladly accepted their offer. My daughter and I began living at my parents' house. My husband kept calling, saying things like, "Let's start over. I can't live without you." I love you. But I blocked his number and emails. Even when he tried to contact through other means, I quit social media and even cancelled my phone contract. But then he started showing up near my workplace. If I become a house husband and you work, everything will be resolved. You owe me since I lost my job because of you. Lend me money. Take responsibility, he demanded, presenting impossible demands. Shaking with fear at what he might do next. I worried about the trouble he could bring to my workplace and the potential danger of him harming me again. There was even a fear of it turning into something more dangerous. Desperate, I took the medical certificate I had obtained just in case after being hit and rushed to the police station, claiming I was being stalked. After explaining everything to the police and showing them the medical certificate, I decided to file a report for injury. It was like exposing my husband to the police. Although the injury was not severe, I was able to obtain a restraining order against my husband for both my daughter and myself. It might only be a small comfort, but it felt like the police were protecting us from my ex-husband. Thanks to involving the police and having both sets of parents witness the situation, the divorce went smoothly. As a form of apology, I received more than the usual amount in alimony, and of course, I retained custody of our daughter. With that money, I decided to buy a condominium near my workplace, where my daughter and I moved in. Naturally, I plan to have the child support paid punctually every month. The reason it's a plan is that my ex-husband has been unsuccessful in finding a job since being fired. His tendency to let others do the work instead of taking responsibility himself has backfired, and even when he manages to find a job, he doesn't actively engage and doesn't last long. Although my ex-in-laws have offered to pay child support instead, I prefer to draw a line there. Indeed, for my ex-in-laws, she is their only grandchild, so I don't intend to stop them from visiting her periodically and providing her with gifts. While I don't want them to give large sums of money, allowing them to give her clothes she wants seems like a win-win situation for both my daughter and them. I even hope this good relationship continues in the future. After everything settled down and we moved into the new condominium, my daughter and I support each other every day. I have been entrusted with responsible tasks at work and my income has significantly increased. Without anyone's help, there's nothing lacking in my daughters and my life. Our home is also close to my parents, and we often spend weekends with them. My daughter is adored by both sets of grandparents and is growing up healthily. My kind daughter wants to become a nurse and is studying hard for her future. Recently at work, I met a sincere man, and we've started going to cafes together occasionally. I'm thinking of having him meet my daughter once I'm sure about him. My daughter will soon celebrate 20th birthday. While selecting her dress, I marvel at how much she has grown. I want us to continue living fulfilling days together as a close-knit family.